You're listening to Friends and Family Capital's First Principles Finance. Our goal is simple: keep you building. Each episode, we discuss tactical questions from our network. I'm Colin Anderson, founding partner of Friends and Family Capital and the former CFO of Palantir Technologies. After years in the trenches, we'll explore the scar tissue, frameworks, and insights that help entrepreneurs turn finance into a force multiplier. Let's jump in. All right, let's jump in. Excited to talk about some things that have been coming through our network and founders in the last few weeks. Whenever we get two smart people in different parts of the world building different things, having a very similar question, it makes me excited to think about and really share that with everyone here. This one is about organizational design and really balancing that through the lens of what sounds good versus what is good. What's the theory? What's the practice? What sounds good in a classroom or draws really well on a whiteboard versus how do you actually do it at the coalface? What works? So let's look at the examples. The first one was really about, do I up level? Do I pair people? Do I put layers of abstraction in before I really know what's going on? And it came through the lens of CEO has two different types of go-to-market. One is commercial, one is government. One is tracking ahead of the other one. And there's a new engineering hire. And the engineering hire says, hey, why don't we have a head of sales? I'm used to interacting with one person. And from a CEO's perspective, like, oh, great, now I can just interact with one person too. Now everyone's happy. It looks good on paper. I can put it on an org chart. But really the first principle here is, what's the rhythm of my business? What's going to work in practice? And do I understand both parts of my business such that I should put in this new design? The key up level here on the first principle is not what sounds right, but it's what is right. So let's separate the theory from the practice. And really the kernel of the first principle here is what's right for the physics, the operations, the rhythm of my business in this particular situation at this particular time with the particular team that I have on the field. You've never seen this situation, and you turn to your memory of your classroom, you turn to your friends who may have done it before, you turn to fancy people who sell their services, hey, I can help you through this. They don't know your business the same way you do. So listen to them, talk to them, run your process. But really, it has to come down to first principles. What do you and your gut say, this is what's right? And then try it. You're going to have to make up your own mind. Don't listen to the experts. Don't trust the theory. Really do what's practice. Study it, inform yourself with it, but stick to the results. Now, in the first situation, you've got a business where there's two parts. It's a commercial business and a government business, each relying on a classic land and expand motion. So what does that mean? That means you start small in one area, you prove value, and then you talk to more senior people and say, hey, let's roll this out more broadly. Now, in this particular case, one of them is tracking ahead of the other. And my red flag is really, it might be easier for where you sit as a founder to put one person over all of it, and it might be easier as a technical interface with the new head of engineering. But really, have you isolated the risk yet? And do you understand the rhythm of each of the businesses? And if one is tracking ahead of the other, it might make more sense to just delay the layering and actually stay close to this. And really on the isolation of risk, I think this really comes into play with team hiring and peak theory. So not everyone's going to be great at everything that they do, but some people, the world-class people, are going to spike in one area and you should let them run with it. Now, in this particular case, you had people that were spiking on the commercial side, let's say, but we were thinking, should we put someone over the whole org before we really knew who spiked on the government side? And that's really tough because you've lost your ability to isolate the risk. So before you did any layering, I'd actually say, let's pair the person who's the best on the government side with maybe the experts they need to help them navigate that. Or let's take the commercial person who's world-class at it, and let's actually have them lead both commercial and government and pair them with the person. Because then you know, is it the market? Is it the person? Is it the pairing? At least you know one of those factors is good. As soon as you start merging factors, you lose the ability to really have a high granularity around what's broken and what needs to be fixed. And especially if you were to layer someone over both of those, you lose the observation window. And you might just lose some stuff on the product side too, knowing what needs to be built for both products and what's just one. So I'd say really, really push off layering until you need to, and you understand those physics and the rhythm of the business, especially as it relates to who are the unique world-class operators that I have running each of these unique world-class parts of my business. Now, let's look at the second example. This one is basically around, I had a finance team. They were external, outsourced bookkeepers. I'm getting stronger as a business. Should I just get a stronger external bookkeeper? The first principle applied here is, which chapter of growth are you for that rhythm of your business? And there's an interesting point right around when you get inflection of product market fit and customers really starting to scale, where it's not about R&D, it's not about keeping the lights on when it comes to finance. It's actually about, how do I build a world-class organization that can handle multiple years of doubling of revenue and get to hundreds of millions of revenue? So ask yourself, if I'm there, why would I keep following the old solution of outsourced bookkeepers or stronger outsourced bookkeepers? And again, structurally, there's nothing against that. That's the right thing for the first chapter. But eventually you need someone who's falling asleep at night thinking just about your business, not about 20 other companies. And that's where you're going to get the best results, especially as you need to stay in control of your destiny. So think, okay, I've gone from one regime, I can count on other people to kind of keep the lights on. Now I've got to do it myself. Which hire do you make? You really want to think of what are the peaks of finance hires? And in this case, it's really thinking, what's the past, what's the present, what's the future? And that tends to spike in terms of past accounting. I know what happened. I can account for it. I can tell you what happened in a really legible, hygienic way. On the present, that's usually operations. I have to get money from point A to point B safely, timely. How do I do that? You're either a weapons grade person at doing that, or you can build a system in which others can operate. Both are very important. And lastly, the future. This is really asking interesting parameterized questions based on data, but really where you have no idea what the answer is and you're just trying to figure out what might happen and how do I prepare myself to be ready regardless of which future comes at me. That's probably someone who skews on Excel or SQL and likes to play around in data sets and ask interesting questions. So I'd say, do a forced rank triage. What do you need most of those skill sets for that next chapter? And it's probably, if you have to pick one, that's a more difficult question. Maybe pick someone who complements your own skills. But if you get to pick two, I'd say pick someone who skews on the past and the present and someone who skews on the present and the future, and you'll probably be in really good shape. So let's bring it back together. We had two great examples there of super talented people building great companies in very different spaces, and each had an organizational design question that really came down to, I'm hearing this from my experts. I learned this in a classroom. This looks good on paper, but is it right? And the key principle is really figure out the physics of your business, the operations, the rhythm of your business. What worked in the past? What do you think will need to work in the future? And then design the way in which you do your work and the team that you build in order to match your particular state, not just what works on average, but what works for you, not statistics, but calculus. And in each of these cases, it's really saying, all right, I understand, I'm listening to people around me, but I'm going to trust my gut because I know my business and I'm going to build something that will work for the next few years. I'm going to solve the medium term, and then we'll just roll up our sleeves and refactor it if we need to when the world changes. But it's not about getting it perfect forever. You'll never do that. It'll never look like a book. Everything's always going to be messy. Just do what works and get you that next chapter and be ready to roll up your sleeves and refactor it, because you're going to have to do that if you're building something that's going from small to game-changing or world-changing in just a decade or less. So get ready for it. It's a lot of fun. Excited to build with you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Friends and Family Capital's First Principles Finance. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a rating on Apple or Spotify. It helps our founders and finance leaders find the show, and it helps us course correct as we build. We appreciate you listening. See you next time.
A note from our friends in legal. The views expressed here are those of the individual Friends and Family Capital Management, F&FC, personnel quoted, and are not necessarily the views of F&FC or its affiliates. All opinions expressed herein by F&FC personnel or guests are solely their own opinions and may not reflect the opinion of F&FC. Opinions are subject to change without notice. This content is for information purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.